Hey everyone, my name is Shanice and welcome back to my channel. Today I am continuing my series of recommending books based on Beatles albums, and I have finally made it to album number 6, Rubber Soul. It came out on December 3rd, 1965, and it was kind of a big moment in music because it was one of the first concept albums where lyricism and the music itself and the storytelling was the focus of the album and not so much on generating singles for the radio. This was very much promoting the idea of the entire record being the piece of art. And stylistically, it's a bit of a mix of soul and funk and a little bit of country, a little bit of folk, and the title itself is the Beatles' acknowledgement of basically their whiteness. In their eyes, it was their lack of authenticity in the sort of soul music that they were playing and they were really inspired by and always gave homage to, as compared to the black artists that were doing that music. They were very self-aware and they always gave credit where they felt it was due. But the title, Rubber Soul, is kind of like plastic soul. It is a play on that concept. It was also the first album since A Hard Day's Night to feature only original music. Most of the songs here are written by Paul McCartney and John Lennon, with the exception of some George Harrison tracks and one that was co-written with Ringo Starr. And so all in all, there are 14 tracks, and I will, as usual, go through each of the songs and describe them a little bit, and then based on what I feel the song's theme is or subject matter, I will then recommend a book that I think fits right in and would make sense alongside the song. So I will begin with track number 1, which is called Drive My Car, and the lead vocals here are by Paul and John. This song is about an actress's desire to become famous and to make it to the big screen, and she promises the person that she's with that they can be her chauffeur, essentially, and promising them that they will be a star, just come along with me, and almost like we'll both benefit from, my being a superstar. So with that in mind, I am going to recommend Swan Song by Kelly Greenberg Jeffcott. And this is a fictionalized version of the lives of the Swans. So the Swans were these high-class, very culturally and financially wealthy, well-to-do, glitterati women that befriended Truman Capote. Some of these women are actresses, some of them are models, but essentially they are these very fashionable accessories for Capote, and they entrust a lot of who they are to him. They tell him a lot about themselves, they confide in him, and, famously Capote used their real stories in an essay and also in like a novel, and it was a betrayal to those women. And so to me, this novel as well as the song are satirizing this life of luxury and materialism, but it's also looking at failed promises, chasing glamour, a certain lifestyle. Ultimately, it doesn't really go well to the person promising something different to other characters. So for track number 1, I recommend Swan Song. For track number 2, which is Norwegian Wood, I am not going to recommend the obvious choice, which would be Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. I'm actually going a little bit in a different route, so I am going to recommend the short story JL from Disha Philya's The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, which I recently finished. I don't really want to spoil the short story, but it is from the perspectives of a young, feisty, very independent high schooler named JL, and her grandmother, who raised her, is basically like her mother. The short story switches back and forth between their perspectives. The song Norwegian Wood is about kind of a failed link up there is an attempt at an affair, but things don't go as expected, and there is a similar situation at the end of the short story JL. And both the song and the short story are tinged with revenge and a little bit of violence, but also a vagueness. You never are sure what exactly has happened or what the narrator has chosen to do or has done or anything. So there's a bit of ambiguity in both the short story and also the song. Track number 3 is called You Don't See Me, and the lead vocals were by Paul McCartney. This song is about Paul's difficulties with Jane Asher. Paul wanted Jane to give up her career and make his career the priority, but she didn't want to do that, and this song is kind of him asking why she doesn't see his point of view or his side of the story. He doesn't understand why she wouldn't want to drop everything for him. So for this song, I am recommending another recent read. It's called Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter. Though in the novel there isn't a man asking the main character to give up a career, there are coworkers and jobs that ask the narrator to dedicate more of her personal life to the job and to making the company succeed, even if that impedes on her mental well-being. I almost see the narrator, whose name is Cassie, asking her crazy coworkers why they don't see her for the full human being that she is and not the robot that they want her to be. It's also about being asked to give up something that you treasure. I guess in Jane Asher's case, that was her career, and in Cassie's case, it's her personal private life away from work, where she could be at peace. She simply does not just want to give in. Track number 4 is called Nowhere Man, and the lead vocals were by John Lennon. This is a bit of an existential song. It is for people who don't know where they're going in life. They're kind of lost soul, searching for meaning. There's a hint of self-loathing in the lyrics, and the song itself is one of the first, if not the first times that the Beatles didn't sing about a boy-girl relationship. This was like a third-person literary character. And so for this song, I am recommending Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. I think both the song and the novel embrace limbo in our lives, where we don't know what we're doing or if there's a purpose or if there's meaning to anything. I think they both have this feeling of just wading in the water and not knowing where you're going. Track number 5 is called Think for Yourself, and this one was written by George Harrison and sung by George Harrison. This is like a rally cry for nonconformity, and it's a rebuke of the singer against like a lover or a friend for not having their own opinion, not analyzing the world around them. And so for this, I am going to recommend The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Really any book that in some way has characters that are uncovering like conspiracies or being skeptical of their government or society, I think fit really well with this theme. And specifically in the 5th season, you have people trying to uncover what the Fulcrum is doing with Origins, how their powers are being harnessed for the Fulcrum's use and the Fulcrum's good. And you have characters just trying to uncover what's happening in the world around them. So there's a lot of learning how to think for yourself in the series. Track number 6 is called The Word, and it was primarily sung by John Lennon. This is about love, that is the word, and love as kind of the cure to ailments and the great unifier, a means to spiritual enlightenment. So for this one, I am choosing This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. So this was co-written by these two authors and tells the story of two female agents whose factions are warring. They have to find a way to time travel and stop their factions battling each other. And in that, they find a connection through, you know, the letters that they leave each other and love. This puts the theme of the song to the test. Can love really withstand tragedy, struggle, trauma? It is definitely sci-fi with very purpley prose, so it might be a little impenetrable at first, but I say stick with it, and I don't think you would regret it. Though it is less like butterflies and roses like the song suggests, I think it, in the end, does sort of agree with what John Lennon was saying. Then in track number 7, which might be one of my favorite tracks on the album, this one is called Michelle, and it was sung primarily by Paul McCartney, and this is Paul singing to a woman named Michelle whom he loves, but he doesn't speak her language, so he's doing it in the simplest, best way that he can. But he, even through the language barrier, wants her to know that he loves her, and he needs her, and he wants her. So for this, I am choosing Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Michelle is the singer of Japanese Breakfast, and this is a memoir that explores Michelle's cultural identity as a Korean American who has sort of lost touch with her roots, especially after she gets engaged and then gets married. She feels like it's something that's growing away from her. But one day she gets news of her mother's cancer, and this brings this confrontation with who she really is. And she has to face the fact that, you know, her spoken Korean is not very good, or as good as it used to be or could be. There's a lot of vulnerability here, and it also explores grief and love through food. You could see the song as potentially her mother singing this to her, but just generally I think the book captures that language barrier, vulnerability, and anxiety that the song represents, but also kind of linked back to the previous song, how love is really the language that speaks the loudest. Track number 8 is called What Goes On, and this song was written by Paul and John, but also co-written by Ringo Starr, and Ringo sings the lead vocals here. So this one is about cheating and betrayal and deception, and wondering what goes on in a person's brain when they commit all of these acts of deception and betrayal, etc. And so for this, I am choosing a book that I read years ago that I really loved and have never really gotten to speak about on this channel. But it's called Ordinary People by Diana Evans. This centers around 2 married couples in the UK, and both couples knew each other when they were younger and have sort of stayed close. They hang out occasionally, and really both are in moments of marital strife. Each person in the relationships is just wondering what is in the mind of the other person that they are married to. So it's that confusion, it's that introspection, and also an examination of your partner and wondering why they have betrayed you in a way. So I really loved that book. I think if you like books that unpack the idea of the perfect family or like the suburbs, then I think this is for you. The next song is called Girl, and the lead vocals here are by John Lennon, and this is about the stereotypical, archetypical woman, and the standards that we have been accustomed to expect of women, and maybe the deception that, in this case, John has felt from expecting women to be like this idealized version of what a woman should be. This is another standout song. I love this song. And so for this one, I am choosing All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. This is book 1 in the Border trilogy, and this is about the main character, a 16-year-old named John Grady Cole, who finds himself cut off from his Texas family line. They're a family of ranchers, and so he decides to up and leave and go to Mexico for a new life. He goes there chasing the kind of ideal life that he's heard of in Mexico. And while there, he does meet a essentially archetypical woman named Alejandra. And I'm not going to say anything else, but I highly recommend this, and just check out the song too, because this is one of my favorites. Track number 10 is called I Am Looking Through You, and the lead vocals were by Paul McCartney, and this is about how two people, in this case Paul and Jane Asher again, are kind of growing at different rates. Paul feels like Jane is still a child, but he has grown up and grown out of love in a way. There's a dissonance within the couple. And so for this, I am choosing Homesick by translator extraordinaire Jennifer Croft. This is an autobiographical memoir fiction, kind of autofiction, who really knows? But it tells the story of two sisters, Amy and Zoe. Amy is sort of a proxy for Jennifer herself, and Amy is like the intellectual student who loves learning languages and pondering linguistics, and she's very precocious. Her sister, unfortunately, struggles with seizures and like mysterious medical diseases, so she has to be hospitalized and go through a lot of surgeries and procedures for a lot of her life. Well, Amy is kind of just allowed to flourish academically. So in that way, they are growing separate, and then Amy goes off to college and she's physically separate from her home in Oklahoma. It is about how people change when they are growing in different directions. I think Jennifer Croft is amazing. I really want to read her latest novel, The Extinction of Irina Ray. I actually watched a live stream talk that Jennifer Croft did at the Center for Fiction this past week. She's incredible. Homesick is a phenomenal work of autofiction. Track number 11 is called In My Life, and the lead vocals were by John Lennon. This is a song about nostalgia. It is about thinking about how you used to grow up. In John's case, how life was like before fame, what his time was like in Liverpool just as a little kid. Yeah, there's no other way to really describe it than it just being very nostalgic. So for this, I chose The Makioka Sisters by Junichiro Tanizaki, and I can see this applying to every character. There are characters who move from the more provincial areas in Japan to the city, and they move further away from their family members, and they're always thinking about what life used to be like. Some characters pass away, and of course there's nostalgia for the times when they were still living and when the family, the whole Makioka family, can be together as one unit. So yeah, it's an acknowledgement of the fact that life just takes you where it wants to go, and you don't have really any control over it, and it's human to be attached to certain moments and want to go back to them. Next is a song called Wait. This is like a coming home song. It's also a reunion of sorts, and apparently is one of the few Beatles songs in a minor key. So for this, I am recommending Persuasion by Jane Austen. I think the obvious reunion similarity here is between Anne Elliot and the man she was engaged to, but then broke it off, but then is reunited with, Captain Frederick Wentworth. And yeah, I think it's about patience. It's about keeping the love that you have for that special somebody, and not giving up, believing that what needs to happen will happen. Track number 13 is called If I Needed Someone, and lead vocals and lyrics are by George Harrison. This is an interesting track. It's almost like George is telling a woman that he would have been interested in her had he not been with his current partner. But, you know, just in case, give me your number, because you never know if I might call you in the future. So it's sort of sweet that he's rejecting her, but it's also like kind of mischievous because he's also understanding that like that relationship is not gonna last. And in reality, the relationship he was in definitely didn't. That was a mess. But because I feel like the song plays with the idea of trust, I decided to recommend Trust by Hernan Diaz. And this one is a classic tale of unreliability, of various perspectives clashing with each other, leaving the reader not really knowing what is true. I think that perfectly fits in with the song and the narrator's intentions. You never actually know what place he's coming from. Is it sweet or is it kind of a jerk move? And so in the book Trust, we get a few different biographies of this multimillionaire named Benjamin Rask, and with all these different takes on Benjamin, we never really know how on earth he really made his money. So I guess as a reader and as anybody entering a relationship, just be a little skeptical. The last song on the album is called Run for Your Life. The lead vocals were by John Lennon, and this is definitely not my favorite song, but it is a bit comical. You know, if you take it to be more tongue-in-cheek, then it's not as misogynistic as it appears to be. But essentially, it's John saying that if the woman that he's with even looks at another man, he will kill her. So for this, I am recommending The Harpy by Megan Hunter, which is a very appropriate last name in this case. In the novel The Harpy, the main character, she finds out that her husband might be cheating on her, and she finds this out from another man whose wife is the one that her husband is cheating on her with. So finding out this information, she tries to gain power from it by concocting this little plan. She says that she will forgive her husband if he allows her to punish him 3 times. I'm not going to say any more, but it is a weird novel. I think I'm liking weird novels lately. There's just a darkness here that is very present in the song. It is kind of a wink, you know, at the reader, at the listener. I think the song and the novel kind of share a bit of a dark sense of humor. And so that is it. Those are all of my recommendations for the tracks on Rubber Soul. This, I would say, might be my second favorite album so far of theirs. I think A Hard Day's Night is still my number one. There's just something so incredible about that album. But this was phenomenal as well. And so I hope to do my next installment maybe in a month or two, so stay tuned for that. But until then, I will see you next week for another bookish video. I hope you're having a great day, and like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye.